Namibia is among the most arid countries in southern Africa. 98% of the country is classified as arid or semi-arid. Water and power are two of the main limiting factors affecting development in Namibia. The UN Comprehensive Freshwater Assessment showed that Southern Africa is one of the most vulnerable regions for water-related problems. Though it receives an average of 360 millimeters of rainfall each year, 83% of this water evaporates immediately after rainfall. Another 14% goes towards vegetation, and 1% supplies the groundwater in the region, thus leaving merely 2% for surface use. The UN warns that half the world population will face water scarcity by 2030, accelerated by climate change and population growth. Shortages on such a scale would threaten food production as well as a health crisis through increased exposure to unsanitary water, which already kills millions each year through waterborne diseases such as cholera and diarrhea. With the effects of climate change increasing exponentially in recent years, Namibia, Botswana, and other neighboring countries are experiencing devastating droughts on a more regular basis. Many of these countries are unable to access sustainable water, with devastating effects being felt both environmentally and economically. Our solution will not only fix this problem, but also provide the country with opportunities that will contribute to the economic growth. A desalination plant will be installed at the coast, allowing potable water to be distributed to areas that are in need. Fertilizer used in agriculture will be created by utilizing recovered biomass from the ocean, as well as producing salt from recovered brine streams, all of which will be undertaken in alignment with environmental stewardship best practices. Water is life, and RO is at the heart of our sustainability initiative. We plan to utilize RO to bring life to the Namibian desert. By implementing this project, we will be able to place Namibia in a position to produce enough water to not only sustain the country, but also allow us to export water to our neighbors, creating a lucrative export market. Our oceans are abundant. Utilized correctly, we will create not only potable water that our country so desperately needs, but we will also create jobs and enterprise, paving the way to growth and prosperity for all.
It's time to set the record straight about some myths and misconceptions about desalination. First, some perspective. It is clear that the world's water resources are under tremendous pressure. The Earth is covered largely with water. The oceans blanket 75% of its surface. In spite of this abundance, we are faced with a growing water problem. Of the Earth's water, 97% is salt water from the oceans. Only 2.5% of the Earth's water is fresh water, and of that amount, approximately 69% is frozen in glaciers and ice caps. That leaves just 0.75% of the world's water in fresh groundwater. And yet, over the next 50 years, the world's population is expected to grow as much as 50%.
This will put a crushing demand on water supplies that are increasingly becoming polluted, drying up, or lost through leaky, aging infrastructure.
Desalination provides new and reliable sources of fresh water to our thirsty planet. Already today, an estimated 300 million people in 150 countries rely on desalinated water.
The desalination industry provides water-stressed communities with a viable option when water conservation is not enough. And we're taking aggressive steps to cut costs, reduce energy consumption, and be environmentally responsible.
In reality, it is expensive to treat water and to get it to where it's needed, regardless of how it's produced. Sometimes, however, the real cost is not apparent to consumers because producing the water may be heavily subsidized by local providers. In fact, the cost of producing water using traditional treatment methods is actually rising. In contrast, the cost of desalinating water has come down over the last 20 years. Today, the average cost of desalting water ranges from 75 cents to $1.25 per cubic meter. Desalinating brackish water costs even less. This downward trend is expected to continue, and the gap is narrowing between desalting water and producing it by traditional means. Depending on location, desalination may be even less expensive.
In parts of the world, it's less expensive to desalinate seawater than it is to deliver fresh water from either groundwater or surface water sources. In parts of Southern California, it takes more energy to pump water from Northern California than it would take to make drinking water from the sea.
What's more, desalination plants can share the same water distribution network already being used in traditional water facilities.
A desalination plant can be an important component of a community's infrastructure and of its overall water portfolio.
Thanks to technology improvements over the last 20 years, the energy required to produce desalinated water has been reduced by as much as 50%. Technologies include more energy-efficient membrane processes like reverse osmosis, and energy recovery devices which capture and recycle more than 50% of the energy used.
The advances that the industry is making in terms of energy savings are really impressive. Every year, new breakthroughs are announced, and new companies are founded to develop those breakthroughs and bring them to market.
Thermal desalination, which primarily uses steam, is also becoming more energy efficient. Advances come from growing use of multiple effect distillation and the building or retrofitting of plants with hybrid systems that incorporate both membrane and thermal processes.
Many desalination plants are now co-located with power plants. This allows the desalination plant to use some of the exhausted energy from the power plant to produce water at a lower cost.
Renewable energy technologies are increasing and could even eliminate the use of fossil fuels. For example,